Here's a question to begin. What if the single most powerful thing you could do every day to lower your cancer risk isn't a pill, a scan, or a special diet, but something as simple as walking? It sounds almost too good to be true, right? Yet the science is clear. Everyday movement, even at low intensity, has a measurable effect on reducing cancer risk across multiple types of cancer, and it works in more ways than you might expect. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Cancer isn't a random event. It's the product of cellular damage, inflammation, hormone imbalances, and metabolic dysfunction accumulating over years. Our physiology has built-in repair systems, immune surveillance, autophagy, DNA repair mechanisms that constantly scan for and eliminate aberrant cells. But these systems work best when the body is metabolically healthy, inflammation is low, and insulin and cortisol are balanced. That's where daily physical activity comes in. It doesn't just burn calories. It improves insulin sensitivity, reduces chronic inflammation, balances hormones, and stimulates immune function, all of which are linked to lower cancer risk. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of your metabolism like a river flowing through a city. When the river flows freely, it carries waste downstream and keeps the environment healthy. But when it stagnates due to inactivity, poor diet, chronic stress, debris, and toxins build up, the riverbanks erode and the ecosystem falters. In your body, daily movement keeps the metabolic river flowing, flushing out waste signals, mobilizing immune cells, regulating hormones, and preventing the buildup of internal stress that can feed tumor growth. What the research shows is striking. A large study in over 85,000 adults wearing activity trackers found that people who moved more each day, even with light activities like walking or household chores, had a significantly lower risk of developing cancer compared to sedentary individuals. Those who accumulated roughly 7,000 steps daily had about an 11% lower risk, while individuals reaching approximately 9,000 steps showed up to a 16% reduction in cancer risk. Importantly, benefits plateaued beyond that, meaning the habit of movement itself is more important than high-intensity exercise alone. And even more intriguing, observational research suggests that very short bursts of vigorous movement integrated into daily life, as little as 3-5 minutes total throughout the day, are linked to substantial drops in cancer risk. So what's the root cause we're addressing here? It's not exercise as punishment. It's metabolic regulation, keeping insulin low, inflammation down, immune surveillance high, and cellular repair mechanisms active. That's what reduces cancer risk. In this talk, you'll learn why movement matters at the cellular level, not just weight loss, how daily steps influence hormones and immune function, why intensity matters very little compared to consistency, what specific evidence-based habits you can adopt today to leverage this science. If this is helpful so far, consider subscribing. I post content like this every day. Let quotes start at the root. If you strip cancer biology down to its fundamentals, one theme keeps appearing: growth signals out of balance. Cancer cells are not just rogue cells, they are cells receiving constant grow messages. And one of the most powerful growth signals in the human body is insulin. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Every time you eat, especially refined carbohydrates and sugar, your blood glucose rises. Your pancreas releases insulin. Insulin's job is to move glucose into cells. That's normal. That's healthy. But when insulin is elevated chronically because of frequent eating, high sugar intake, or inactivity, something else happens. Insulin activates a growth pathway called mTOR, mechanistic target of rapamycin. Think of mTOR as the master construction foreman inside your cells. When it's on, cells build, grow, and replicate. That's helpful for healing and muscle repair. But when mTOR stays chronically activated due to persistently high insulin, it creates an environment that favors abnormal cell proliferation. Many cancers exploit this pathway. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine insulin as sunlight. In the right amount, it helps plants grow. But if you leave the sun blazing non-stop, weeds grow just as aggressively as healthy plants. Cancer cells thrive in that constant sunlight. Now here's the powerful part. Daily movement acts like a dimmer switch on that growth signal. When you contract skeletal muscle, even through something as simple as brisk walking, your muscles absorb glucose without requiring as much insulin. This improves insulin sensitivity. Over time, fasting insulin levels drop. Lower insulin means lower mTOR overactivation, reduced IGF-1 signaling, less metabolic pressure on cells to divide. What the research shows is consistent. Individuals who engage in regular physical activity have lower circulating insulin and lower IGF-1 levels, both of which are associated with reduced risk of breast, colon, and prostate cancers. And this isn't just about weight loss. A sedentary person with normal body weight can still have high fasting insulin. That's what we call metabolically unhealthy normal weight. The driver is inactivity and muscle underuse. Your muscle tissue is a metabolic sponge. If you don't squeeze the sponge daily, glucose lingers in the bloodstream longer, insulin rises higher, the growth signal stays on. This is why movement after meals is particularly powerful. A simple protocol: take a 10-15 minute walk within 30 minutes after eating. Aim for 7,000, 9,000 total steps per day. Include at least 2-3 short brisk intervals, even 30-60 seconds of faster pace. That small habit significantly blunts post-meal glucose spikes. Over months and years, that translates into lower insulin exposure. And remember, cancer risk accumulates over decades of signaling. You are not trying to exercise off disease. You are regulating growth pathways. Now let's go one layer deeper. If insulin is the fertilizer, inflammation is the soil. Cancer rarely develops in calm, balanced tissue. It develops in environments where cells are under chronic stress, bathed in inflammatory signals that damage DNA, disrupt repair mechanisms, and weaken immune control. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Inflammation is not inherently bad. It's a survival mechanism. If you cut your finger, inflammation rushes in to repair tissue. Then it turns off. But modern life creates low-grade persistent inflammation, what researchers call inflammaging. It's subtle. You don't feel it like an injury, but metabolically it simmers for years. Sedentary behavior plays a major role in this. When muscle is inactive, blood flow slows, anti-inflammatory signaling molecules drop, visceral fat increases, pro-inflammatory cytokines like IL-6 and TNF-alpha rise chronically. And visceral fat, especially around the abdomen, is not passive storage. It's metabolically active. It secretes inflammatory molecules that create an environment favorable to tumor growth. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine inflammation like static noise in a communication system. When static is low, signals are clear, cells repair properly, DNA damage is corrected. But when static is constant, messages get distorted. Errors accumulate. Some of those errors become malignant mutations. Daily movement reduces that static. When you exercise, contracting muscles release molecules called myokines. These act almost like anti-inflammatory hormones. They counteract the inflammatory signals coming from visceral fat. What the research shows is that consistent moderate activity lowers CRP, C-reactive protein, a marker of systemic inflammation. It also reduces circulating inflammatory cytokines and improves endothelial function, the health of your blood vessels. Importantly, this effect is independent of weight loss. Even without losing a pound, regular walking reduces inflammatory markers. That means the biological benefit begins immediately, not months later. Now here's where most people misunderstand exercise. They think it must be intense to work, but extremely intense training without recovery can temporarily increase inflammation. What lowers chronic inflammation most reliably is consistent, moderate, repeatable movement. So here's a practical anti-inflammatory protocol. Walk at least 30 minutes daily at a pace where you can talk but not sing. Add 2 sessions per week of resistance training. Muscle contractions amplify anti-inflammatory myokine release. Prioritize sleep. Because sleep deprivation elevates inflammatory cytokines. Pair movement with whole food nutrition, especially cruciferous vegetables, berries, olive oil, and omega-3 fats. Movement and nutrition work synergistically. Together they calm the inflammatory terrain. And remember this principle: cancer does not simply appear, it emerges from an environment. Lower insulin reduces growth signals. Lower inflammation improves cellular stability. You are changing the terrain. Now we move to one of the most powerful and often overlooked mechanisms of all. Your body is not defenseless against cancer. In fact, abnormal cells form in all of us regularly. DNA replication is not perfect. Mutations happen. What prevents those mutated cells from becoming tumors is something called immune surveillance. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Your immune system constantly patrols tissues looking for abnormal or damaged cells. Specialized cells like natural killer NK cells and cytotoxic T cells identify and destroy potentially dangerous cells before they can multiply. Think of it like airport security. Every day, thousands of passengers pass through screening. Most are harmless, but occasionally there's a threat. If the screening system is alert and well-staffed, problems are stopped early. But if staffing is low or surveillance is sluggish, things get missed. Sedentary living weakens this surveillance system. Reduced circulation means immune cells move more slowly through tissues. Chronic inflammation and high insulin suppress certain immune functions. Over time, the patrol system becomes less efficient. Now here's the remarkable part. Even a single bout of moderate exercise can dramatically increase the number of circulating natural killer cells in the bloodstream, sometimes by 50–300% temporarily. These cells don't just increase in number, they become more active. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine immune cells parked in the garage. When you move your body, it's like opening all the garage doors and sending patrol cars out into the city. Blood flow increases, immune cells redistribute into tissues, surveillance intensifies, and this effect compounds with consistency. What the research shows is that regular moderate exercise enhances tumor immune infiltration, meaning immune cells are better able to enter and attack abnormal growths. In colon, breast, and lung cancer models, physical activity has been shown to slow tumor progression, partly through immune activation pathways. But again, intensity is not the key driver. Consistency is. If you move daily, you are essentially scheduling a daily immune system training drill. Here's a practical immune optimizing movement protocol. Aim for 30–45 minutes of moderate activity most days of the week. Include resistance training twice weekly. Muscle contractions enhance immune cell mobilization. Add brief intervals of faster walking or stair climbing to create short spikes in circulation. Avoid chronic overtraining. Extreme exhaustion suppresses immunity. And don't underestimate recovery. Sleep is when immune recalibration occurs. Less than 6 hours of sleep per night measurably reduces NK cell activity. So movement and sleep are partners. If this is resonating with you and you value science-driven strategies like this, consider subscribing. I share practical physiology-based tools every week to help you strengthen your metabolism and longevity. Now pause and reflect. Lower insulin, lower inflammation, stronger immune patrol. You're not fighting cancer directly, you're strengthening the systems designed to prevent it. Now we arrive at something most people completely underestimate. Muscle is not just for strength. It is not just for appearance. Skeletal muscle is one of the most powerful metabolic and anti-cancer organs in the human body. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Every time you contract muscle, you activate a cascade of biochemical signals that improve glucose control, enhance mitochondrial function, and increase metabolic flexibility. Muscle tissue is the largest site for glucose disposal in the body. In fact, after a meal, up to 80% of glucose uptake happens in skeletal muscle if that muscle is metabolically active. If it's underused, that system weakens. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of muscle as a massive fuel tank attached to your metabolism. The bigger and more active the tank, the more efficiently you can store and burn incoming fuel. But if the tank shrinks, which happens with age and inactivity, excess fuel spills into circulation, blood glucose rises, insulin rises, fat storage increases, inflammation increases. This metabolic overflow creates stress that damages cells over time. And here's the deeper layer. Muscle contraction activates an energy-sensing enzyme called AMPK. AMPK is like a cellular thermostat for energy balance. When activated, it suppresses mTOR, the growth pathway we discussed earlier, and promotes repair mechanisms. AMPK also stimulates mitochondrial biogenesis, meaning your cells build more efficient energy factories. Healthier mitochondria produce less oxidative stress. Less oxidative stress means less DNA damage. What the research shows is that individuals with greater muscle mass and strength tend to have lower cancer mortality rates, even after controlling for body weight. Muscle quality, not just body size, predicts resilience, and this becomes even more critical with aging. After age 30, adults lose approximately 38% of muscle mass per decade if they do nothing to preserve it. This condition, called sarcopenia, is associated not only with frailty but with worse cancer outcomes. Now here's the empowering part. You don't need to become a bodybuilder. You need to stimulate muscle regularly. A simple longevity protocol: resistance train 2-3 times per week. Focus on compound movements: squats, lunges, push-ups, rows. Use weights that feel challenging by the final 2 repetitions of each set. Aim for 6-12 repetitions per set, 2-4 sets per movement. Progress gradually. Small increases over time signal adaptation. Even bodyweight training is powerful if done consistently. Pair resistance training with adequate protein intake, roughly 1.2–1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight daily for most adults seeking muscle preservation. Spread protein across meals to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. And remember this principle: every muscle contraction sends a message. That message says, repair, regulate, strengthen. You are not just building strength, you are recalibrating metabolic signaling. So far we've addressed insulin, inflammation, immune surveillance, and muscle metabolism. Now we move into one of the most fascinating mechanisms of all, and one that surprises many people. You don't need hours in the gym to activate powerful anti-cancer biology. In fact, very short bursts of higher intensity movement, even just a few minutes total per day, can switch on cellular repair systems that suppress tumor formation. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Inside every cell, there's a quality control process called autophagy. The word literally means self-eating, but don't let that sound alarming. Autophagy is your body's recycling system. It identifies damaged proteins, dysfunctional mitochondria, and cellular debris and breaks them down. This process prevents accumulation of cellular junk that can contribute to mutations and cancer development. Now, autophagy is triggered under conditions of mild stress, not chronic stress, that's harmful, but brief controlled metabolic stress. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your cell as a factory. Over time, broken machinery and scrap materials accumulate. If no one cleans it up, productivity falls and errors increase. Autophagy is the cleanup crew, but they only show up when the factory senses it needs maintenance. Short bursts of vigorous movement create that signal. When you climb stairs quickly, sprint briefly, or cycle hard for 30–60 seconds, your energy demand spikes, ATP levels drop, AMP rises. That activates AMPK, the same energy-sensing enzyme we discussed earlier. AMPK activation suppresses mTOR and stimulates autophagy. This shift moves your cells from growth mode into repair mode. What the research shows is that high-intensity interval training, HIIT, increases markers of autophagy and improves mitochondrial function more efficiently than moderate exercise alone. Even when total exercise time is short, One study examining vigorous intermittent lifestyle physical activity found that as little as 3–5 minutes per day of accumulated vigorous movement was associated with significantly lower cancer incidence in previously inactive adults. The key phrase there is accumulated. You don't need a 30-minute sprint session. You can stack 30 seconds of fast stair climbing, 1 minute of brisk uphill walking, 20–30 seconds of fast cycling, carrying groceries quickly, short body weight circuits spread throughout the day. These bursts create metabolic pulses that trigger repair pathways. But here's the caution: intensity must be appropriate for your fitness level. If you are sedentary, start with brisk walking intervals. Gradually build. The goal is stimulation, not exhaustion. A practical protocol: 2 to 4 short bursts per day, each lasting 20–60 seconds. Effort level around 7–8 out of 10. Full recovery between bursts. This approach keeps cortisol balanced while activating AMPK and autophagy. Pair this with overnight fasting, 12 to 14 hours between dinner and breakfast, and you amplify repair signaling even more. Fasting lowers insulin. Movement activates AMPK. Together they create a powerful metabolic reset. Remember this principle: growth and repair must stay in balance. Chronic growth signaling increases risk. Periodic repair signaling protects you. Now we bring everything together. If there's one principle I want you to remember from this entire discussion, it's this: cancer risk is shaped by daily signals, not occasional heroic effort. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Your cells are constantly responding to inputs: insulin levels, inflammatory signals, oxygen delivery, immune surveillance activity, hormonal balance, mitochondrial efficiency. These signals fluctuate daily, and your body adapts to what it experiences most often. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your biology as a piano. Every day you're pressing keys. Some keys represent high insulin. Others represent inflammation. Others represent repair and immune strength. If you occasionally press the healthy keys but spend most days pressing the sedentary, high-sugar, low-sleep keys, the song doesn't change. But if you press the protective keys daily, even gently, the entire melody shifts over time. This is why consistency beats intensity. One brutal workout followed by 5 sedentary days does not meaningfully recalibrate metabolic pathways, but 7,000–9,000 steps daily, that shifts insulin exposure. 30 minutes of walking most days, that lowers inflammatory tone. 2 resistance sessions weekly, that preserves muscle and glucose control. Short bursts of effort sprinkled into your routine, that activates repair pathways. What the research shows is that prolonged sitting itself is associated with increased cancer risk, independent of structured exercise. That means you can't fully undo 10 hours of sitting with one workout. Movement must be frequent. This doesn't mean perfection. It means rhythm. Here's a simple daily longevity framework you can implement immediately. Morning, 5–10 minutes of light movement after waking. If possible, brief sunlight exposure to regulate circadian rhythm. After meals, 10–15 minute walk to blunt glucose and insulin spikes. Midday, 1 short burst of stair climbing or brisk walking, 2 to 3 times weekly. Full body resistance training session, 20–40 minutes. Evening, gentle walk or mobility work to lower stress before sleep. And perhaps most importantly, reduce uninterrupted sitting. Stand, stretch, walk while taking phone calls. Set a 60-minute timer. These small repeated inputs create a new biological baseline. You are not trying to outrun cancer. You are making your internal environment less hospitable to it. Lower growth signals, lower inflammation, higher immune vigilance, stronger muscle metabolism, activated repair systems. This is metabolic terrain management. Let quotes. Step back and look at the full picture. Cancer does not emerge overnight. It develops over years, sometimes decades, of accumulated signals. Signals of excess growth, signals of chronic inflammation, signals of metabolic imbalance, signals of weakened immune surveillance, and what we've discussed today is powerful because it addresses those root causes directly. Daily movement lowers insulin and quiets mTOR, reducing the constant grow message that cancer cells exploit. It reduces chronic inflammation, calming the biological soil where mutations take root. It strengthens immune surveillance, increasing your body's ability to detect and eliminate abnormal cells early. It preserves muscle, your largest metabolic organ, improving glucose control and reducing oxidative stress. It activates AMPK and autophagy, shifting your cells periodically from growth mode into repair mode. And perhaps most importantly, it works through consistency. Here's what's really empowering. You don't need extreme workouts. You don't need expensive supplements. You don't need perfection. You need rhythm, 7,000 to 9,000 steps per day, 30 minutes of moderate movement, most days, 2 strength sessions per week, a few short bursts of higher effort, regular sleep, whole food nutrition. This is not about athletic performance. It's about metabolic signaling. Let me leave you with this perspective. Every time you move your body, you are sending instructions to your cells. Lower growth, repair damage, improve insulin sensitivity, strengthen immunity. These instructions accumulate, and over time, they change your biological trajectory. So here's my challenge to you. Pick one behavior from today's discussion and implement it immediately. Start with a 10-minute walk after dinner tonight, or schedule 2 strength sessions this week, or set a reminder to stand and move every hour. Then track how you feel, track your energy, track your sleep, because when metabolism improves, everything improves. Clarity, stamina, resilience. Your body already has anti-cancer systems built in. Movement simply activates them. If this added value to your life, like the video and subscribe to join a community of people optimizing their health naturally. And remember, longevity isn't built in dramatic moments. It's built in daily decisions. I'll see you in the next one.